Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Here we go, hump day on the way. Larry Smith here, Sports IQ. Lots coming up here. We've got Zach Neel joining us in just a couple of minutes talking about the Oregon Ducks. Hey, listen, they have had just a fantastic start. So many changes there in Eugene. But the big matchup this weekend at Penn State, Zach Neel, our friend, is going to from USA Today, is going to join us on that. Also, Aidan Stepansky talking Syracuse. We've got Andy Birchman talking Birchman. I'm sorry, talking too fast here. So much stuff coming up tomorrow. We'll talk Ryder Cup with our friend Scott Ryder. Also, Isabel Gonzalez, CBS Sports, joins us talking WNBA. Let's speak about the WNBA. In fact, the playoffs, the action is fast and furious. They're taking a break tonight. Phoenix coming into Game 2 last night with the Lynx, having dropped 10 straight postseason games in Minnesota. They were down by 20 in the second quarter. Most Phoenix fans thought this was over, but oh no. Satu Sabali scored 11 of her 24 points in the fourth quarter. Alyssa Thomas, who helped out with 19 points and 13 assists. The Mercury erased that 20-point deficit and beat the Lynx 89-83 in overtime on Tuesday. That ties the WNBA Semifinal series at one game apiece. For the Lynx, Nafisa Collier with 24 points on her 29th birthday. Kayla McBride had 21 points. Courtney Williams added 20 and 9 assists, but the bench just didn't hold up their end. Minnesota's bench outscored 25-3 in their first loss of these playoffs. Game 2 in Las Vegas, meanwhile, Asia Wilson bouncing back from a rare off game, 25 points, 9 rebounds. The Aces even their WNBA semifinal playoff series with a convincing 90-68 Game 2 victory over Indiana. After shooting less than 30% in the game loss, the Aces shooting nearly 54% on Tuesday night. So both series now tied at one apiece. They take a couple of days off. Phoenix hosting Minnesota Friday. The Fever welcoming the Aces to Indiana also on Friday. Major League Baseball, listen, Detroit fans, you better get out the rosary beads, lucky rabbit's feet, search for a four-leaf clover, anything to help your Tigers. They are collapsing faster than a straw hut when the big bad wolf started huffing. Last night in Cleveland, Jose Ramirez drove in a run with a swinging bunt. Cleveland rallying at a strange sixth inning against Detroit ace Tariq Skubal to send the Guardians past the Tigers 5-2, and they move into a tie for first place in the AL Central. Cleveland caught Detroit after being 15 and a half games back on July 8th. The Guardians, they were still 12 and a half back from the Tigers on August 25th, just a month ago. Have now won 11 of 12. They are 17-5 in September. Meanwhile, Detroit is fading fast. The Tigers have dropped 7 straight, 10 of 11, as that giant lead again is struck 0. Gavin Williams matching a career high with 12 strikeouts in 6 innings for Cleveland, which can eclipse the 1978 New York Yankees, who overcame a 14-game deficit for the largest comeback since divisional play began in 1969. The AL East getting a little tighter as well. The Jays dropping a 4-1 decision to the Red Sox at home. The suddenly slumping Jays had just 3 hits, lost for the 5th time in 6 games. Meanwhile, the Bronx Bombers used a Jose Caballero RBI single with 2 out in the 9th to topple the White Sox 3-2. And so New York securing their 8th playoff appearance in the last 9 seasons, just a game behind Toronto in the East. In the AL West, Seattle, Josh Naylor's bases clearing double in the 8th helped give the Mariners a 4-3 win over the visiting Rockies. Seattle, that was their 15th win in the last 16 games. They secure at least a wild card berth. Meanwhile, the Astros now 4 games behind the Mariners in the West thanks to their 5-1 defeat at the hands of the A's. Houston's dropped 4 straight and now in danger of missing the playoffs entirely. In the National League, the Mets reclaimed the final wild card spot in the senior circuit. New York getting a Francisco Alvarez tie-breaking 2-run homer in the 8th to rally and beat the Cubs 9-7. Meanwhile, Cincinnati lost a 4-2 decision to the Pirates to snap their 5-game winning streak. New York now a 1-game lead over Cincinnati for that final wild card spot in the National League. The Dodgers dropped their 2nd straight, 5-4 to the D-backs. San Diego pounced on the Brewers 7-0. So the Dodgers lead over the Padres in the West is now a game and a half. College football, another coach won't be finishing out the season. Oklahoma State said so long to longtime head coach Mike Gundy. Gundy, more than 2 decades on the job, former Cowboys quarterback there in Stillwater, was the longest tenured coach in the FBS. The last season, though, in the last 3 games have been a nightmare for the Cowboys. They went 3-9 last year. starting 1-2 this season, including the loss to Tulsa. Gundy led the Cowboys to 8 10-win seasons in his 21 years at the helm. He was a 2011 Coach of the Year in college football. Meanwhile, in the NFL, Jackson Dart. It's your time in New York. Giants head coach Brian Daboll announcing on Tuesday, Dart will get the start on Sunday when the Giants take on the Chargers in the Meadowlands. Joining us now to talk more college football, and the game this weekend is number 6 Oregon at third-ranked Penn State. Under the lights, I'm sure it's a whiteout game there at Beaver Stadium, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on NBC. Zachary Neel joining us once again on the show. Good to have him as always, Oregon beat writer for USA Today. Zachary, good to see you again. This is one of those games that, I mean, to me, I've been talking about since we've had conference expansion. I can't turn away from the TV on Saturdays. And it's games like this, the reason why. My wife and I will start watching at 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll pick up whatever early game, the end of that game. And before you know it, it's 11:30 at night. We're turning the TV off, going to bed. We've ordered a pizza or something. And I mean, this is one of those games that to me, two of not only the best teams in the Big Ten, but the very best in the country.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's funny, the juxtaposition between this week and last week. Because as you said, this week is amazing for conference expansion. I mean, this shows what the Big Ten can be. Last week kind of showed the downside because Oregon versus Oregon State used to be this incredible rivalry in the Pac-12. It kind of lacked a little bit of juice because of this conference realignment. So there's positives and negatives, but like you said, I mean, we're focused on this week right now. Should be incredibly fun. The fact that we get this as a regular season game, the rematch of the Big Ten championship last year, it's a ton of fun. I can't wait. Been waiting all year for this game.
Yeah, I want to get to this game, but I want to go back first to, and I got to ask you as somebody who was right there, the Oklahoma State game after the comments by Mike Gundy and all that, and then just the real slapping of the Cowboys that happened. What was it like to be there? What was the atmosphere after the game, after all the verbiage going on out of Stillwater during the week?
As soon as on that Monday of that week, when we heard what Mike Gundy said, and like, I don't think what he said was too crazy. It probably wasn't the smartest thing by him to give Dan Lanning any bulletin board material, but it's not like he, dissed him and dissed his family and all that. He talked about the NI a little bit, but when we were in that game and once we got into the middle third quarter and they had those back-to-back pick sixes and made it 63-3, it was like, all right, you start to feel a little bit bad for the other team. It's just one of those situations, but no, that was a very funny game. I think it was probably one of the more entertaining blowouts I've seen. I mean, 63-3, not usually a great score, a great game, but that was one just because you knew how much it meant to them. You knew that they were kind of playing with a chip on their shoulder after what had happened earlier in the week.
Yeah. Well, and also it's like one of these, like, I'm sorry, the name T. Boone Pickens, Oklahoma State.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you had a blank check until the guy decided to was chosen to go on to glory. Let's not act like you're, on the street corner looking for quarters to fund your football team. It's not going to happen. So, and as I saw the score, I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, wait, that's not a money game. I forgot that's Oklahoma State. I'm watching on the ticker as it's going by. So, okay. Back to this game. Oregon again. I'm hoping the East Coast fans understand. And we've talked about this before about how good this Oregon program is, not just this team, but for 30 years, it's been one of the best programs in the country. Do you get the sense that maybe people are starting to pay attention and maybe believe that and understand that this is a program that is truly among the elite year in, year out?
I think they're starting to. It'll be interesting to see how the conversation advances or changes after this game. I mean, because last year they announced their presence by, going undefeated in the Big Ten, winning the Big Ten championship. That got dinged a little bit in the playoff, with the loss to Ohio State, but they at least announced that they're good enough for the Big Ten. Obviously, like they came in, win the program right away. If you can go on the road to Penn State and win a whiteout game a year after, being the number 1 seed, and then returning only 4 starters from that team, that's an incredible achievement. I mean, anyone says, ask any college football fan, Penn State, Beaver Stadium, a whiteout environment is one of the toughest places to play in the nation. Like it's known, it's fact at this point. If Dan Lanning can go in there and get the job done with this team, I mean, it's a very talented team, but just new. We don't know what Dante Moore is going to look like with 106,000 people screaming at him. So, I think that if they can do that, it's going to change the conversation a little bit. That Oregon is real. I mean, a lot of people, they know them, they know about them, they know they're a very solid program. But I think they can really turn some heads this weekend.
You mentioned all of the changes, like you said, just for starters returning from that team that won the Big Ten, number one seed in the college football playoff, losing to eventual champion Ohio State. What's impressed you about this team here in these first 4 games? You have the money game against Montana State, but again, we mentioned Oklahoma State. You go win Northwestern. You handle Oregon State very well. Now another trip back east. What about this Oregon team that's impressed you so far?
I think so far it's been the youth. I mean, there are some of the players who are stood out the most this year have been true freshmen or redshirt freshmen. I mean, the 2 starting cornerbacks are a true freshman or redshirt freshman. 2 of your most productive running backs. The highest scoring touchdown player on the team is a true freshman running back. I think the most talented running back on the team is a true freshman running back, De'Aaron Hill. You've got Decorian Moore, true freshman wide receiver, who is, I think probably the best true freshman in the nation among them, probably the best true freshman wide receiver. Dante Moore, redshirt sophomore. I mean, so many places along this team. They're starting safety Aaron Flowers is a redshirt freshman. Like, there's so much youth. They've got sprinkled in some, veteran players from holdovers from last year, last couple of years, and transfers too. So it's really kind of spread out. But I've just been really impressed. Dan Lanning has always said, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And so they've really taken that to heart. Like, they've got a lot of really high-end players that they've got out of the recruiting ranks over the past couple of years. And they're playing above the line so far. So they're getting them on the field and they're impressing.
Yeah. Obviously, you have players coming in because of the transfer portal, but the core of the team coming back from last year overall, even though you're placing a lot of starters. What is the psyche of this team after last year? I mean, hard to, if you're number one seed and Big Ten champ, hard to be disappointed with that. But again, there were higher aspirations, right, to do this. The college football playoff, you lose the opener. Was there a hangover there? Or how has the team handled that psychologically coming into the 2025 season? It appears they're just fine.
So far, yes. I mean, of course, I think a lot of teams would be just fine against the schedule that they've played so far. So we'll see this week. But Dan Lanning came into the year and said that their mantra for the season was double down. They know that they did what they did last year. They know that they achieved their goal by winning the Big Ten championship, being the number one seed, all of that. Now they want to do it again. Now they're kind of putting their chips on the table saying, hey, you think that this was a one-off? We're going to show you that it's not. So we'll see how successful they are in achieving that. I think that they can be really good. Regardless of win or loss this week at Penn State, I don't think this weekend will determine their season at all. They could still get to the Big Ten championship, get to the college football playoff, even with a loss this week. If you want to talk about pressure this week, I think it's squarely on Penn State, but that's a different conversation. So I think they learned a lot from last year's Rose Bowl. I think the seeding and the format of the college football playoff obviously has changed since then. I think it was an interesting experiment. And of course, Oregon was kind of the guinea pig for that, which has happened before. So no, I think overall they learned from it, and I think they're bouncing back and ready to do it again.
Yeah, I still go back to it feels like Oregon always is that team that kind of gets caught up in that. I think about the BCS situation. And I'm just finishing my book. I'm writing about it, where I actually challenged Roy Kramer, father of the BCS, during the SEC championship game when LSU knocks off Tennessee. And then the third place team from the Big 12 goes up to face Miami when Oregon was right there at 10-1 and should have been in it. That's another story. I'm going way back. But anyway, I know what you mean. It always happens, it feels like, with Oregon. This Penn State team right now, I know you've had a chance to begin to kind of delve into what the Nittany Lions do. What impresses you about this team? And at the same time, where do you think their weakness is?
Man, they can run the ball super well. I mean, they've got 2 NFL running backs in Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton. Got a very solid offensive line too. So if we're talking keys to the game, the number one thing for Oregon to do is stop the run. That's something they couldn't do in the Big Ten championship. They gave up 297 yards on the ground. That's not something you can do this weekend, obviously, and expect to win in Beaver Stadium. It's just not going to be easy to do. Drew Aller is someone, he's a very solid quarterback. I'm still not totally sold on him. I think he can win you a lot of games. I don't think he can be the reason that you win games. I think they need to lean on their running game a lot, which, if I were their coach, I would lean on the running game too. Obviously it's working for them. They've got great players there. But I've just been really impressed. They're a solid team. They're really built well in the trenches on both sides of the ball. It's going to be a classic Big Ten matchup. And, last year we saw that Oregon could handle those. They had really good, they had 3 NFL players on the defensive line. They got a couple NFL players on the offensive line. We'll see what it looks like this year because they retooled a lot of those positions. Can they do it again? I don't know. We'll see.
You mentioned earlier Dante Moore, and I'm kind of bouncing around here. Get back to him. Clearly it seems like in the Oregon system, quarterbacks just do well. I mean, it's just, Bo Nix, last year, Dylan Gabriel, and now Dante Moore. Where does it seems like, again, he's adjusted well, but what can he do better now that we're getting into the meat of the season?
Yeah, you mentioned quarterbacks doing well. Credit to Will Stein. He's going to be a head coach soon, I believe, but a very, very good offensive coordinator and quarterback whisperer. Dante Moore is impressed, not only for his arm talent, which I think is elite. I think he's got a really, really strong arm and can make NFL-level throws, but his decision-making has been really impressive so far, too. He's not putting the ball in harm's way. He's tucking and running it when he needs to, when the play's not there. I think, so far it's pretty hard to nitpick what he needs to do better because he's done things at a very high level so far. I think he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and he's not really getting that Heisman buzz yet just because they haven't played anyone and he hasn't had to do too much. But again, after this week, if he has a good game and they can even keep it close on the road or win on the road, I think you'll start to see his name pop up a little bit more. But one small nitpick I have, when he does run, he always tends to get hit. I think he's probably taken a decent hit in every game so far this year. And as someone who covers the team, and I know a lot of fans watch that, they're like, just maybe get down a little bit, learn to slide a little bit earlier. So that would be my very, very nitty pick right now.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. We were talking yesterday with Cooper Perkins. I know you know him, the USC insider, about USC making 2 trips, to the Midwest for them in a span of 3 weeks. You're doing the same thing, just at Northwestern a couple of weeks ago, and then now going all the way out to Central Pennsylvania. What's the feeling there on the team? Look, when the Big Ten expanded, we knew this was going to happen. But as I'll say to you, as I said to Cooper yesterday, it just feels like it's a little unfair to have it happen twice in a 3-week span.
That's okay. They also made Michigan State play a game at 11 p.m. their body clock the other day. So, everyone's going to get screwed a little bit in this. I think what is more unfair than the travel is, maybe putting Penn State, giving them a bye week before this game and having Oregon play not off of bye. So, but you know what? This team is not going to make excuses. They don't care. Dan Lanning's always said, line the football up in the parking lot and we're going to play. They want to get out there and play. I'm interested to see how they do on the road again. They did fine against Northwestern in that strange environment. That was a 9 a.m. game, body clock time too. So, and they did fine with it. They started a little bit slow, but that's not something you can do in this game. And I don't think they will either. That's a primetime game. I don't know how you can start slow in that environment or be not awake for that. So I think they'll be good.
Yeah, certainly a little difference in trips. 15,000 in that soccer stadium as they're building the new stadium up there in Evanston to 106,000. Look into your crystal ball. How do you see this thing playing out on Saturday?
I've bounced back and forth probably 5 times in the last 24 hours. I think, I really do think Oregon can win this game. I think it'd be a close win. I've got 34-31, something like that. They got to stop the run. I mean, I don't think they're going to win, I think they can win a shootout, but like the Big Ten championship. But I don't know. I just think that they're a really talented team, and they haven't been tested yet, but they've done everything that's been asked of them. I've got Oregon winning a close one. Yeah, sounds good. I can't argue with that. Well, listen, Zach and Joy, as always, we appreciate your insights. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us when you do. It's Oregon football. The Ducks aren't going anywhere, so we'll be knocking on your door again to talk some more football here in the near future. I'm happy anytime. All right, appreciate it. Zachary Neel, once again, he is the Oregon beat writer for USA Today, and the big game this weekend is Oregon at Penn State. It's the game we're all waiting to watch. And again, I'll be sitting there. For once, it's a weekend. I'm not doing anything. I'm not traveling, so I'm just sitting watching football. So we'll be there, and we'll watch the Ducks. Okay, Zach, thanks again. More Sports IQ coming up after this.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back here. That's right. The Sports IQ continues, and producer Tony has our next guest.
Well, thanks so much, Larry. And, college football really in full swing now. And last year, one of the real feel-good stories was the Syracuse Orange, right? They had Kyle McCord come in as a transfer quarterback from Ohio State, had a great season. Kyle got himself into draft position. Everything was working out great. This year, they bring in Steve Angeli from Notre Dame, and it looked like they were going to have the same kind of feel-good story. Well, let's pick it up there with Aidan Stepansky. He is the Syracuse Orange beat writer for the Daily Orange. Mm-hmm. And let's talk a little bit about this team. And Aidan, it was a great start for Steve, and it's so sad to see what happened to him in that non-contact injury, and his season comes to a premature close.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me once again. And, I was down there in Clemson this past weekend. And, like you said, it was tough to see. Early in the game, Steve went down with a knee injury, but he popped straight back up and really just didn't miss a beat. But then when you saw him kind of go down with that non-contact, like you said, you kind of knew that was probably the end. He couldn't put any pressure on that left leg whatsoever. And then post-game in the tunnel, for a post-game media, we saw him sitting there with his mom, and Coach Fran went over and comforted him. So it was really tough to see, but just seeing what Steve was able to do game by game, kind of improving game by game, really, especially from the end of that UConn game where they had this miraculous comeback, and then they go into against Colgate and just absolutely dismantle them, and then going to Clemson, really, we're just on point at every point that Steve was hitting on. So that was tough to see, but I think looking forward to the future of the program beyond this year, if Steve Angeli is able to recover from that injury, which we know is a very tough injury to recover from, it'll be interesting to see how he can recover from that and if he can pick up kind of where he left off.
Yeah, I think he'll have another year of eligibility, if I'm not mistaken, so he can come back for Syracuse next year if he chooses. Hopefully he can make his way back. Great kid. As a Notre Dame fan myself, loved seeing him play and was really following him there at Syracuse and enjoying what he was doing up. But now you've got another transfer that's going to take the helms and should be a nice fit. They were going neck and neck in the summer camp before Angeli won the job. So it's not like, you're throwing in someone you have no confidence in. There's a lot of confidence at Syracuse in your backup quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Ricky Collins was actually named the starter in the spring. During spring camp, he was named the starter pretty early on. Coach Fran Brown said he wanted to name a quarterback, and he named Ricky before the spring game as the guy. But then Ricky kind of went through a little hand injury on his throwing hand in the spring, didn't appear in the spring game. That drew some questions, and then wide receiver Trevor Pena transferred to Penn State for more money, but also Coach Brown also expressed that Trevor showed a little bit of, fear of playing with a first-time quarterback like Ricky, and that was part of the reason why he transferred over. So, I'll have more. I have a story on Ricky coming out Thursday in the Daily Orange, so definitely check that out, kind of on his background. But, he, like you mentioned, he kind of fought in the fall camp and obviously didn't end up on top, but he kind of stuck with it. I know him and Steve became really, really close friends throughout the process and have a great relationship now. So it'll definitely be cool to see. It's kind of a different play style. Ricky's kind of a gunslinger, has some ability to get outside the pocket. And it's going to be cool to see how Jeff Nixon maybe alters the offense or caters it toward Ricky's play style.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say is now you've got a different potential style of offense. Angeli's not much of a runner, but Ricky kind of brings that added dimension. It gives the Duke defense, at the very least, something else they have to prepare for coming into this week's game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think just from talking to a bunch of Ricky's high school coaches and his quarterback coach, Wyatt Davis, Ricky can throw the ball. I feel like there's somewhat of a misconception of people who haven't really watched his game that, he is like a run first guy. He definitely is a passing first guy. He can deliver out of the pocket. But like you mentioned, it's kind of that ability when the plays break down. His quarterback coach, Wyatt Davis, actually said that they watch a lot of tape on Steve McNair, former Titans quarterback, kind of compare his play style to that of being able to break it down and deliver out of the pocket or make someone miss in space when you need. So, yeah, I'm not sure how much they're going to actually alter the offense. I mean, Jeff Nixon has just been a wizard since he took over at Syracuse. Obviously with McCord last year leading the nation, and then Angeli was right up there at the top to start this season. So I'm not sure if Ricky's going to be able to replicate that production specifically, but he's going to be able to throw the ball still.
I mean, for Syracuse now going into this game, they're 3-1. Great start to the season. Lost at Tennessee. No shame in that. That's a tough place to play, and that's a tough team you're playing. And I think you were actually in Atlanta. They were in Atlanta.
Yeah.
For the it was one of those kickoff games there early on in the season. No shame in losing to Tennessee. They're an outstanding SEC team. Came back with 3 wins in a row, beating Clemson at Clemson. That's huge. Now you come home in the dome there and facing a tough Duke team. It seems to me, looking at the stats, I haven't seen too much of them play, but looking at the stats, the defense has a little work to do for Syracuse, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Duke's defense, I believe, is giving up the most points in the conference right now. So that's something that Syracuse can definitely look to exploit, whether through the air or kind of getting that rushing game going with Collins' ability, but also with Yasin Willis and Will Nixon. So I think this is a team where, it's Parents Weekend here. It's supposed to be a sold out crowd at the Dome, which I'm a little skeptical of if it's actually going to be sold out or not, but that's what the people are saying. So, but it'll be cool to see. I think Ricky, he's kind of used to those big environments, obviously coming over from LSU, learning under Jaden Daniels, who in my story, I detail about how he's a big mentor to him. Jaden said that Ricky's like a little brother to him. So, and then obviously watching Garrett Nussmeier last year, who is just lighting the world on fire this season and could be at the top of draft boards come April. So I think Ricky's kind of used to these environments, but he hasn't really got his crack at it. Death Valley was definitely a good experience for him, but he obviously didn't make the start. So playing against Duke will be definitely a challenge. Duke has some playmakers. Manny Diaz should have that defense ready to go, but I think it's going to be cool to see what Ricky can do, and if he can kind of match what obviously Duke's quarterback, who is highly regarded in his own right.
Yeah, they can throw the ball there at Duke. They're averaging well over 330 yards a game. The Syracuse back part of that defense has struggled a little bit at times. So are they going to have to scheme up some things to put some added pressure on Duke, hopefully get some extra sacks to kind of, protect that secondary a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And Elijah Robinson's defense has definitely had its struggles in his first, 15 games or so since he became Syracuse's defensive coordinator. But I think the game against Clemson was really his most complete performance as a coordinator at Syracuse thus far because of that pressure. Syracuse's pass rush on their defensive line is probably near the bottom of the ACC alone, but by using linebackers, by using a lot of their blitzes have kind of been exotic rushes with defensive backs, like Raheem Long has recorded a sack in each of the last 2 games. And then Devin Grant is kind of playing this rover role now where he's dropping into the box a lot. He's kind of coming off the edge a little bit. So I think that's exactly what they're going to have to do. Now, for the outside, I think the cornerbacks have been much improved this season so far with 17-year-old Demetrius Samuel. He's looking like a superstar in his own right already. And then Chris Pio, a transfer from Georgia, has also been extremely strong as well on the outside, was targeted 12 times against Clemson and only allowed 6 passes to be completed. So I think the defensive backs are definitely kind of finding their role and finding their connection so far. And last week was a great example of that.
So this game against Duke, looking at it just from a statistical point of view, could be one of those, almost reminds me like it could be an Arena League game. Whoever can get a stop might win this ball game, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I was we do our beat predictions each week, and I have Syracuse winning 31-27. I think it's going to be super close, and I think Syracuse might have to come from behind for this one just because of, what if Ricky kind of starts a little slow, gets his feet wet, early in the second quarter or something like that. But yeah, I think this is going to be somewhat of a shootout, but based on the performances of Duke's defense this season so far versus Syracuse's defense, I think Syracuse's defense does have that ability to make some stops. Deuce Chestnut is a safety who is a huge role for Syracuse's defense. And he only played 5 snaps against Clemson, and they still had a prolific performance. So I think he'll be a little healthier this week as well. And that could be a huge help to getting that one stop, like you said, and maybe stopping that arena football fireworks.
Appreciate it. Aidan Stepansky. He is the Orange beat writer, the Syracuse football beat writer for the Daily Orange. Thanks so much for stopping by, giving us some insight into what is going to be a pretty entertaining ball game, I think, this coming Saturday. Give him a follow on social media. Check out the Daily Orange and get everything you need to know about the Syracuse Orange for this football season. Aidan, thank you so much for being with us.
Yep, thank you.
We will be right back on the Sports IQ, and we'll continue talking a little more college football right after a break.
Hey, airline travelers, let's say you have a problem and you need to change or cancel an existing airline reservation. What do? Well, Skywatch is a free service that can help anyone with any airline reservation fix it. Whether you want to cancel it, change your dates, or add passengers, we can help fix your airline reservations so you get exactly what you need. We've updated our computer database and now have access to every airline around the globe. So now you can make one phone call regardless of who booked your airline tickets, and we'll change it, cancel it, and fix it for you. We know the insider secrets to fixing reservations that the airlines don't want you to know about. So if you need to cancel, change, or modify an existing airline reservation, call Skywatch right now. It's a free call, so let us fix it for you. 800-413-7158. 800-413-7158. 800-413-7158. That's 800-413-7158.
Life can be full of risks. One thing you shouldn't take a risk with ever is your family's health insurance. If you're self-employed or you now need affordable health insurance, you need to make this free call right now and see how the Health Insurance Helpline can help you get it. We specialize in helping the self-employed and people just like you that need affordable health insurance to get it. We have short and long-term health insurance plans, and some even cover dental, vision, and prescription drugs. Don't take a risk with your family's health insurance. It's not worth it. If you're self-employed or now need affordable health insurance, call right now and learn for free how to get it. Listen, affordable health insurance plans for everyone just like you are a free phone call away. So give us a shout right now.
800-373-8414. 800-373-8414. 800-373-8414. That's 800-373-8414.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back here to the show. Producer Tony is now with our next guest.
Well, Larry, thanks so much. And, you know, there are a lot of interesting games in the SEC every week. And Auburn is embroiled in one coming up this week. So we went right to the source. Andy Bertram, he is the voice of the Auburn Tigers. We're going to get his take on this game and see what lines up. Andy, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Tony. Looking forward to getting to College Station and what should be a fascinating game with A&M coming off of its win at Notre Dame. Auburn coming off of another heartbreaking loss, second straight year to Oklahoma. A&M coming off of a bye week. So I'm going to be fascinated to see how both of these teams react this week.
You know, Coach Freeze was not real thrilled with how the ending of that Oklahoma game went down, and in particular with the officials. Now, that's, you know, never really a winning hand, right? It's always tough to go against, you know, complain about the officials. Did he have a case? Did you think you were there watching the game? How was the way it went down? So at the end,
well, a touchdown that Oklahoma had was later ruled by the Southeastern Conference that was an illegal play. I mean, the Southeastern Conference, by the time we landed coming back from Norman, Oklahoma, by the time we landed in Montgomery, the SEC had already issued a formal release saying that the play was illegal. So Auburn wasn't the only one that thought, at least on that play, that it was not ruled properly. Here's the thing. In spite of what anyone thinks about the officials in the game, okay, Auburn also gives up 9 quarterback sacks and has 13 penalties. And when you're playing on the road in the Southeastern Conference and you're playing against a team that is in the top 15, you're not going to win many of those ball games, regardless of how the game is officiated. So to me, that's what you look at. That's the thing you've got to learn from. That's what you have to improve upon, because now you're getting ready for a team that's not just in the top 15. You're getting ready for an undefeated team with a week off that's in the top 10 in Texas A&M.
And we saw A&M against Notre Dame. They were able to get a lot of pressure on C.J. Carr. What does Auburn need to fix up to kind of solidify so that it's not another multiple sack day for them against A&M?
Here's the thing that impressed me the most about Oklahoma and its pass rush. The Sooners did it with their front four. They didn't bring a lot of extra guys. There weren't a lot of safeties or linebackers coming on blitzes. They did at times, but primarily it was that front four that put the pressure on Jackson Arnold. And that's not a huge surprise. I mean, we knew how good this Oklahoma team was coming in, especially defensively. And they just put an incredible amount of pressure on Auburn. In talking with Hugh Freeze on his talk show Monday night, Auburn gave up 9 sacks. And after the game, it was 10. They ruled it was now 9. Here's the deal. 5 of those were on basically the quarterback. He held the ball too long. Jackson Arnold held the ball too long. 4 of those were just fabulous plays by that defense. The safety at the end of the game was on a play where Auburn's tackle just got bull rushed back to the quarterback. So that's why I say that what impressed me the most about that Oklahoma defense was its front four, because they were the ones that put in the pass rush. And now Auburn gets ready to face another fabulous defense that may be even better all around defensively in Texas A&M because of how good this secondary is for Texas A&M. So Auburn has to step up its game in front of 110,000 fans at Kyle Field on Saturday afternoon.
Would it seem, from my perspective, looking at it, the best way to kind of defeat that defense is to keep them on the field, try to make it a grinded out game? Does Auburn have the personnel, you think, to maybe make it, a slower paced game? Do they want, I know Hugh Freeze likes to play a lot of up tempo. Would a slower paced game help Auburn in this situation some?
Perhaps. And Auburn showed that ability even in the Oklahoma game in the fourth quarter when Auburn took the 1-point lead late, or in the fourth quarter of that game. It had a drive that it went a long distance, and it took a great amount of time off the clock. When Auburn is most successful this season, through its first 4 games, it has been with the run game primarily, and that the pass game is a complement to the run game. And that will have to happen on Saturday. Auburn is best when it can run the football. And on that drive, it did. And that's not just Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb. That's also the quarterback in Jackson Arnold. Auburn also showed the ability to throw deep. Really hadn't had to in the first 3 ball games, including the win at Baylor, where Auburn just ran the football all night long down in Waco, but really didn't go deep much. It showed the ability to do that on Saturday. There are so many plays on Saturday, and take away the officiating again, that if Auburn, there were 2 passes to Cam Coleman, one in the end zone where he's 7 yards behind the defender, and Auburn doesn't get a touchdown out of that drive, and it should have. There's another one where he stopped his route, and if he keeps going, that's probably another touchdown. So that's 2 plays right there. So Auburn had its opportunities in spite of all the other things that happened. 9 sacks and 13 penalties, and what they have to improve upon is the special teams play. They still had opportunities to win a game against the top 15 team on the road in the Southeastern Conference.
And now you're back on the road, obviously, in Texas A&M against another top quality opponent in the SEC. Is this, the SEC is so competitive. They're so deep and so strong. Are you facing almost, these weeks seem to be, if you want to make that college football playoff, a lot of must-win weeks now. Even, look, Alabama's got a loss already in conference. A lot of these teams are facing must-win weeks each week now.
Well, and I'm not sure that's ever going to change.
Yeah.
That's how good this league is. Listen, in years past, there was typically a game on your schedule, even in the SEC, where you went in going, we've got a great chance to win that. And typically it was Vanderbilt. That's not the case anymore with Vanderbilt, is it?
No, absolutely not.
as long as Diego Papi is the head coach or as the quarterback there, and he may be there until his 30s if he keeps winning these lawsuits. But that is, look at what that team has done, and it's undefeated. There is no gimme in the Southeastern Conference. Mississippi State in the last couple of years has really been struggling. Mississippi State is 4-0 right now going into this weekend. I don't get the opinion that moving forward now in this 16-team league, that there's ever going to be a time where you go into a ball game and say, all right, that's a W. Now let's move. That's not the case. That's not the case in the Southeastern Conference.
And one of the things that are going to be interesting for Auburn, being a Notre Dame fan, and the listeners here know that.
Really, I couldn't tell that by everything.
Tell that by the big hat?
No, not at all.
And watching them at Texas A&M against Notre Dame, look, they've got a pair of speedsters on the outside. How does Auburn look to contain them and contain Marcel Reed in this ball game? Because that could be one of the deciding factors in this game.
Pull this microphone a little bit closer here. Here's the thing that impresses me the most about this offense for Texas A&M. It is the best all-around offense that Auburn has faced, with Le'Veon Moss in the backfield, who is as advertised. Marcel Reed, we knew he could run the football. He has shown now what we saw from him at your Notre Dame a couple weeks ago. He has shown that ability to pass and do it under pressure. Thrown for 360 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. But also what they have done at the wide receiver spot. Listen, A&M's always had good wide receivers. But Craver coming in is averaging 22 yards a catch. And oh, by the way, 147 yards a game receiving. He leads the country. And this is a transfer out of Mississippi State. He's from Birmingham. He's from Auburn's backyard. And this guy has put up phenomenal numbers this season. It is the best offense all around that Auburn has faced. And that includes what Auburn saw last week in John Mateer with Oklahoma, who, by the way, apparently broke his thumb on his throwing hand in the first quarter and continued to play that game. And on their game-winning drive was clutch throwing the football, which makes that all the more amazing to me.
Yeah. When you're playing with a broken thumb as a quarterback, that's pretty impressive, right?
On your passing hand.
Right. It's not like it was his offhand. It was his throwing hand and still able to get that done. Yeah. If you're looking at it from just a purely logical standpoint, and you're given the task of there's 3 things we have to do that Auburn has to do to get a victory. Yeah. What would be those 3 items that you think they most have to do?
And Auburn did one of those things last week, Tony. They held on to the football. They didn't turn the ball over. All right? It doesn't guarantee a win, but for Auburn, if you turn the ball over a lot on the road in this league, you're in a lot of trouble. Auburn must
Florida.
Yes, exactly. Auburn must run the football well this week and do it against a very, very good defense in Texas A&M. And I think Auburn is, at some point has to be able to. And you know what? Auburn has done a good job of controlling the run game of its opponent. I mean, Oklahoma had trouble running the football last week, and Auburn did a good job of Mateer running the football. Auburn, I think, needs to do that again this week against Texas A&M. I don't know if you stop the Texas A&M pass game. I don't know if Auburn has a defense that can put the clamps on Craver at the wide receiver spot. I think Auburn has to do a good job against the run, which it has done in the first 4 weeks of this season.
So taking a look at everything, what's your prediction coming into this game?
Yeah,
no prediction.
I won't do a prediction, Tony. Sorry. It's not just for your show. I don't do it for any
I appreciate that.
Here's one thing. As disappointing as it was for Auburn, as heartbreaking as, and that's the second straight year that Auburn has walked out of the Oklahoma game with the lead in the fourth quarter and walked out with a loss. There were several encouraging signs in that ball game that gives me hope for this ball club continuing to improve and moving forward. So I look forward to Saturday. Auburn traditionally, historically, has played well in College Station. Now, A&M's won the last 2 games there. Auburn won the 4 overtime thriller here last year in November. There have been some really good games between these 2 teams. I think Saturday will be another one of those.
Yeah, it's going to be a titanic battle. I think it's just going to come down to who can make that one big play.
Sure.
That one game breaking play that kind of sets it apart. And Notre Dame did show that Texas A&M special teams might have a weakness with that block punt. So it could be a special teams play that turns the tide of this ball game.
Well, and that's an area that Auburn must improve upon because it was not good in special teams last week at Oklahoma. So, yeah, that could be a huge factor in the ball game to be sure.
Auburn, Texas A&M this weekend, just another great game in the SEC. Each week, you have 4 or 5 of these wonderful ball games, and it's so much fun for college football fans like myself to be able to watch and see where it goes. I'm sure you enjoy calling those games as well, Andy.
It is an absolute thrill. I mean, for me to walk into that stadium Saturday or to walk into Jordan-Hare Stadium and I park in the old Beard East Coliseum parking lot. I walk across the street through the RVs here in Auburn and get to walk into that stadium on a Saturday is an absolute thrill. It is something that I never, ever take for granted. And I look forward to walking into Kyle Field on Saturday and getting to call that ball game.
Enjoy that ball game Saturday at Texas A&M. Andy Bertram, thank you so much for your time. He is the voice of the Auburn Tigers. Enjoy the game Saturday.
My pleasure to be with you today, Tony. Thank you. War Eagle.
War Eagle. Go for it. We will be right back on the Sports IQ right after a quick break.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293.
Hard to believe the NFL are about to start the international play. Remember, this is just like one game a year, then 2 games a year. They will play 7 international games. We've already had the one Chargers and Chiefs playing down in Brazil back on week 1, that first Friday night of the season. Well, now we're going to get into going over to Europe now. The game over in Dublin at, I guess it's called Croke Park. Vikings and Steelers in this one. It's actually the NFL's first regular season game in Ireland. We see those games in England. There's some reporting right now on Front Office Sports. You do such a great job of just some of the stories that they pick up on. There's been some buzz about possibly doing a Super Bowl overseas. Well, I guess that's kind of cool right now. And let's face it, I don't see this happening anytime soon for a number of reasons. So the next 3 Super Bowls you've got coming up: San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Atlanta. So that Vegas is going to want one. And then you have all these teams that are building new stadiums, and there are 3 big reasons that these stadiums are being built, especially these northern cities building domes. They want a Super Bowl, they want a college football playoff or championship, and they want a Final Four, right? All those are going to bring in, tens of thousands of fans. And that is not only, fees at the airport, it is restaurant, it's hotel, it's rental car. You're pumping in 9 figures in a week, right, into this. So when you're Chicago, when you're Cleveland, when you are Washington, that's all part of this. Nashville's building one. They want to be a part of this. On top of, again, Atlanta has a stadium that is less than 10 years old. Obviously, LA we've mentioned before, and there's still the other ones that have done that. Dallas isn't that old. Houston, there's Phoenix. Don't forget about the Florida places that are always the staples, right? Miami, Tampa, New Orleans always is a fun place to go party for a week. So I would be shocked to hear that the NFL owners actually agreed to put a Super Bowl outside the U.S. in a city that's not an NFL stadium for all those reasons, because you spend all this money. Jacksonville's building a new stadium, open air stadium. The last time they did that, they renovated their stadium. They got a Super Bowl back in the 2000s. So I just don't quite see that happening. But anyway, other than that, I think that's kind of one of the next pieces there. So, okay, quick timeout and then a moment of awe. It's a pretty good one. That's up next.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
Time now for a moment of awe, and this weekend the Ryder Cup will tee off at Bethpage Black, and this is one of the craziest stories. We've heard this before. They've hosted majors before. We'll talk more tomorrow with Scott Walker about the competition between the USA and Europe. But if you want to try to get a tee time at Bethpage Black, you don't just simply call up or go online. You have to go wait in your car. And that means even bringing a cooler, not just drinks, but snacks, and sometimes sleeping in your car. Maybe you grab a blanket or two, a pillow, and someone then comes around and says, by the way, your tea time is X. But people do it all the time, especially right now. They'll do it here coming up. It's closed for the moment because of the Ryder Cup. It'll reopen next month, and then people will rush in to try to grab a tea time before the winter break. Truly, imagine all these people wanting to spend tons of money to go play one of the top courses in the U.S., if not the world. That's a moment of awe. We appreciate our guests stopping by. I appreciate you as well. It's the Sports IQ. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.